So, hello, and thanks for joining this webinar. My name is Claire, and I work at Faber Music, which publishes the Stringtastic series. It's lovely to see many people joining today. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat section and let us know where you're joining from. Before I hand over to Mark and Paul, just a note that there will be time for questions at the end of this session. So please do write your questions in the Q&A section throughout, and then I will be manning the Q&A and I will ask those questions to Paul and Mark at the end. So without further ado, over to Mark and Paul.
Thank you, Claire, and welcome to everybody. We really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and spend some time with us. So Mark, there are plenty of great beginner resources out there already. Why did we start the Stringtastic journey?
Well, Paul, one of the things that we find is that we teach in so many different situations. So we teach obviously one-to-one, we teach in small groups, we teach in small mixed groups. At the moment, I've got quite a few groups with violinists and violists at the same time. In addition to that, we teach in whole class situations, we teach beginner string orchestras, so many different things, and we need all sorts of material for that. And we thought, wouldn't it be great to have a book that covers everything? And we have tried to do that with our Stringtastic series.
And not only everything for one instrument, but for actually all of the bowed stringed instruments.
Every bowed string, including the double bass, which is integrated into this series from the very, very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So, Paul, what are we going to try to cover today?
So we've got about 45 minutes to get through 3 books. What we'd like to do is actually to give you as much time as possible to actually do some playing. So we're going to just start with a few disclaimers because we want to try and save as much time as possible. So we're actually going to talk as violin and viola teachers. The music that will come on the screen will be a violin version and a cello version. But when we're talking about G sharps and F sharps, low 2s, high 3s, we're going to be talking from a violin point of view, because to try and do it from a cello point of view and a bass point of view, we'll just kind of eat into time. You'll all know what we're kind of talking about. And although the books are on sale all over the world, we're going to use mediums, crotchets and quavers, again, just to cut down on time and not having to repeat things in different ways. So you will see kind of quite a lot of musical examples, and you'll be playing along to the backing tracks, but you can actually in Zoom increase the size of the music. And to do that, if you go into the viewing options, click on the downward arrow, click on the zoom ratio and then select 100%. It'll just make the slides bigger, and then with your mouse you can kind of center the music as you play it. So I'm just going to say that one more time. So if you go to the viewing options, click on the downward arrow, click on the zoom ratio button and then select 100%, then that'll increase the size of the music. Or if you want to go back to the normal size, then just click on fit to window.
Okay, so Paul, we're going to look at the 3 books that we brought out so far, which slightly confusingly are called Beginners Book 1 and Book 2. So can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So Beginners goes from the beginning open strings all the way through to a D major finger pattern. And then Book 1 continues from that, introduces all the other notes on the other strings, introduces F naturals, B flats, kind of the low 2 hand position, and all the techniques that are required to get to grade 1. So Book 1 goes to grade 1, and then Book 2 goes from the end of Book 1, and by the time you got to the end of Book 2, you are at grade 2. The next book, which will be Book 3, will take us to grade 3.
Fantastic. So starting with beginners. So we have these 3 sections in beginners. The first one is open strings. And these are open string tunes. They're absolutely conceived as being tunes. Which is quite challenging to write, but really great fun. There are 20 of them. However, you don't need to teach them sort of 1 to 20 in a go. All of the different rhythms that we have in our book are covered in the first 9 tunes, most in the first 5, including retake bows. So, Paul, why did we do it that way?
So we did it that way because we feel that at the start, there's 2 things that we need to do, and that's build up really good posture and bowing and things, and then also kind of getting the fingers going. So in this book, you can actually do the 2 at the same time. So I know you, for example, you teach the first 4 tunes, And then as soon as I've got the first 4 tunes down, you then jump to tune 21, because the rhythms, which we'll see later, are very simple. And then you start to introduce the left hand, and then you actually work the book concurrently. And then the nice thing with this book is, although there's 43 tunes in the book, when you get to the end, the first 20 open string tunes, we've actually written tunes that fit over the top of these open string tunes. And they all use the D major hand position. So that means you can either go back and get your pupils to play the first 20 B parts to the tunes if they need some additional reinforcement. But quite often for us, we use them in assemblies and things where we've got children who are maybe in the second year, and we bring them back. They can play the harder parts. The pupils who just set off, they play the open string parts. They can play both parts together. And we can also create longer bits of music, because everybody can play the open string part, and the more advanced pupils play the beat part and play them together. They can get to sing some of the tunes because they've got lyrics and things. So we can actually make longer pieces out of these short pieces.
And that means you've effectively got 63 pieces in the book.
Yes.
So let's have a look at the first piece in the book here. So you can see what Paul was talking about here. We've got on the left-hand page, obviously, violin, right-hand page, cello here. We've got the A and the B parts there. Now, these B parts also have another little function as well, which is you can, as a teacher, play them with your beginners. So you create a duet straight away, which is really a nice thing to do.
Which is useful if you don't have access to a piano.
Exactly. So, Paul, can you tell us a bit about why we wrote Fanfare for Musician, why it's titled that, and why we've got this pattern of notes at the beginning?
Okay, so it's called Fanfare for a Musician. We like to make a huge deal that as soon as you start to play, you are already a musician. You've already started your musical journey, and we're musicians, you're musicians. So together, we're actually walking that journey. We obviously just used a D at the start. Although it has bowing marks in, it doesn't mean to say that you have to start with a bow. It's entirely up to you when you want to use the bow, but we thought we'd just put them in there. We found that if you just give pupils a complete row of Ds to play, they just get lost. So by actually putting in these patterns of 5s, and we did kind of try different patterns, and we found that 5 was the best way to do it. It actually really helps them kind of move from one note to the next, and we found that pupils don't get lost as much. You'll notice at the start we've got count 2 bars. All the tunes in this book have the number of bars introduction at the top, and if you look at the bar numberings that we've got, line 2 is bar 7. That's because bar 1 and bar 2 are in the introduction. The nice thing with this book is that all the instrumental parts are all formatted identical, so you can say, let's turn to page 18, go from the 3rd line down, and everybody's in the same part. Mike, just tell us a little bit about the lyrics in this tune.
Well, we've got the lyrics, which actually have a sort of marching reference to them, which really helps with getting that idea of the beat. Mm-hmm. Talking about beat, you can also see that the rest, we put 3 crotchet rests here. Obviously, strictly speaking, should be a crotchet and a minim rest, but it's just making life more clear, for things easier for the beginner. Also right at the end, you might see 2 notes with crosses in them. And those notes are for the student to shout out, okay, which we find particularly in a group situation that the students love doing. But it also means that we know that if they say that with confidence, they know exactly where they are. And of course, the lyrics in the second line really help with counting, with going up to the 1, 2, 3, 4. So we thought it might be nice to play this.
Yeah, so we all hope you've got your instruments.
Yeah, so what you'll hear is 2 bars of beeps in, and then you'll actually have the 2 bars of the piano introduction, and then we play. Okay, so here we go. like many of our pieces, deliberately kept short so you can really focus on that technique from the beginning. Now, we then have a couple of other pieces introducing minims. We have another introducing the A string. Paul, could you tell us something about tune number 4?
Yeah, so in tune number 4, we wanted obviously to cover the string crossings, and we've done that just in patterns of 4. But we also wanted to actually create some additional pieces that gave pupils more opportunities to practice their minims and crotchet kind of reading. And instead of writing an extra couple of tunes, what we thought that we'd do, we would actually kind of combine the string crossings with and some theme and variations so that they can use the minims and crotchet reading as well. But we also kind of quite like to use this tune to do some other things as well, where we can actually get the pupils to actually write their own theme and variations using different crotchets and minim rhythms, or we will play completely different rhythms on the D string and the pupils can kind of replay back on the A string. So this tune can be used in lots of different ways.
So this one's got 4 bars of introduction on the piano, and we're only going to play the theme just now. So let's play this one. Okay, so Paul, we talked earlier on about how you could jump forward in music. One of the things I like about that actually is that the students often think, oh, I've really gone forward. I'm in tune 21 now. So that's quite a good thing. So this is where we start introducing the fingers. Now, what was our thinking in the way that we introduce those fingers?
So we both like kind of having tunes that actually start with fingers already down. That's so that we can make sure that from a tuning point of view, it's in tune, but probably even more importantly, that the hand frame is correct, that the posture is correct, and everything's nice and solidly set up before the pupils start to play. I think actually starting on an open D can actually be really quite hard and tricky at that initial stage. So the vast majority of our tunes all start with a finger down. So as you can see, we're not going to actually play finger food, we're going to play Steady Eddie, but if we talk a little bit about finger food, again, there's lots of rests in there just to make the reading nice and easy. Starts with the first finger down. You've then got the rest to take the finger off, and then you've got the rest again before putting the finger back down. And then it's only right at the very end where you've actually got to do the going from an open string to a first finger. Steady Eddie is a great tune that pupils like. Why is it called Steady Eddie?
Well,
because it's spelt wrong.
Yes, well, neither Paul and I are good spellers at all, and so it's a little bit of a joke about us. But also we thought it was fun because at the end you can see the minims, the last 3 notes, where you got Eddie's name spelled out. And this one involves retakes, which the first one doesn't. You have a little bit more practice moving between the open string and the first finger without a rest. And you also obviously have the minims at the end. So we are going to play Steady Eddie. It has a repeat in it. We're not going to do the repeat just now. Okay, so we're just going to play it straight through. 2 bars of introduction here. So, Paul, we now come to a tune which has a very appropriate title for 2 people that live in the west of Scotland.
Yes, always rains here.
Always rains. So we've got Music for a Rainy Day. Now, for us in Stringtastic Land, we had a rather exciting bit of news about this piece, didn't we?
But we've had two pieces in the beginner book that have been selected by the Associated Board for the initial violin, viola, and cello, and this is one of the pieces that have been chosen. Just a really nice, beautiful, atmospheric piece that really works about getting this first finger across. We don't go straight from a 1 to a 1. There's always an open string in between, just to allow the finger to come across and also to think about, you know, what's going to happen from an elbow point of view. Beautiful lyrical playing and a beautiful piece.
Yes, and the interesting thing as well is we stuck when it came to fingers, we keep on just the D and the A string in beginners, with the exception of the double bass book. So it just allows not too many notes need to be learned in one book. You'll notice here there's no introduction. So this is an opportunity, obviously not when you're playing with the backing track, but when the student is playing with a pianist, for them to direct the beginning of the music. So there'll be 2 bars beeps and then you're straight in. We're going to go for complete contrast now, aren't we, Paul? Would you like to tell us something about second best?
Yeah, so second best introduces F sharps. And while it kind of looks a little bit scary at the start, actually it's the bow that's doing the work. And again, we've gone for the rest just to allow the pupils time to actually think about taking the fingers off. Again, starting with the F sharp allows us to create a good hand frame and just make sure that everything's beautifully set up, beautifully in tune. And then in line number 3, the second 4 bars are actually just a variation on the first four bars. And we've actually produced 2 different sets of backing tracks. The ones we've heard so far are all the piano backing tracks, but we've also created some kind of band, orchestral, kind of atmospheric backing tracks. So we thought we'd play one of the band backing tracks for this one.
Yeah, I think this one's great fun, some brilliant trumpet writing. So 2 bars in, obviously the beeps as well. Here we go. I can never hear that one without smiling, Paul. It's a great, great tune.
Mike, tell us a little bit about Oh What a Day.
So this is the second piece that has been chosen for the ABRSM initial grade, as Paul mentioned earlier. So there's obviously a few more notes in this one. So you're using every note which is possible at this point on the D string. And you're also using this crossing over to the A string. Obviously, if you're playing violin and viola, you could play that with a 4th finger. We do introduce 4th fingers by the end of the book, so you can always come back and relearn a piece like this using a 4th finger instead. Quite tricky rhythm, isn't it, Paul?
It is. You'll notice that the quaver movement is sometimes on the 2nd beat and sometimes on the 3rd beat. Now, we like using lyrics either to tell something about the music that we're playing from a technical point of view, or as in one of the pieces earlier, to actually about practicing or singing in your head or thinking about music in your head, or to tell a story. but some of them don't have lyrics. What do you like to do with this one, Mark?
With this one, the title actually does fit the rhythm of the beginning. And so I find it's great fun to get my students to actually come up with words. And quite often we do it together, and it's an enjoyable process. We're not going to play this one just now, just because of time. So we're going to move on. And we're actually going to go to our next book.
Okay. So in book 2, we've got kind of 4 sections. Section 1, we introduce all of
Book 1.
Sorry, in book 1, we introduce all the notes on the other strings that we've not covered. And we do that by using all the rhythms that have just been covered in book 1, so they don't have to worry about anything new from that point of view. And then the second part of the book, that's where we introduce all the new techniques. So we introduce slurs, semiquavers, dotted crotchets, and compound time. And we do that using the D major finger pattern. And that means that at the start of the book, you can actually, again, use the book concurrently, because you can start to learn the notes on the other strings, and at the same time, because you already know the D major finger pattern, start to work and build up some of these new techniques and rhythms. The third part of the book is where we introduce B flats, F naturals, Cs, Gs, E flats on the C string for the viola and cello. And then the last part of the book is we bring all this together in slightly longer pieces of about the grade 1 standard.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Now, this is the first piece, as you can see here, which is in book 1, which, as you see, even we get confused, don't we, between book 1 being our second book. But we hope it kind of makes sense. Now, this one's called Time for C, because obviously we're using C being the highest note we can put with the fingers at this point on the G string. We've gone for using all the notes on the string straight away here, because we've covered them in beginners on the other string, so there's no reason why not do that. The lyrics, as you can see here, they teach you the names of the notes. And we feel it's so important that students know the names of notes. They don't think of it as G3 or G2, but they know it's C and B. And to help with this process, the notes only move by step. Again, rather like fanfare or finger food, we got these rests in there dividing it up. We find it's quite fun to do a game with the students of find the only open G, which is in the piece. And quite often they can look at it for a while before they find that. But that's very good, I think, to get people to concentrate on what the notes look like. So we're going to play this one, and this one, as you can see here, we've still got, similar to beginners, we've got count 2 bars in at the beginning. Okay. You might see there's a range of metronome marks here that we use in this book. So that piece obviously could be played quicker. And the other thing I like about it is a mixture of retakes and non-retakes, or what I sometimes call statue. So I like that mixture as well. Moving on here, Paul, we've got a piece which deals with one of the issues of Stringtastic, and one of the problems that came up when we were writing.
So one of the problems, obviously, is violin, double bass, doesn't have a C string. And we've got E string. So what do we do when we're working on the C string with the instruments that don't have a C string? So this piece, Into the Deep C, is obviously a tune for the C string. And what we've done with this, from a violin point of view, we've been working on the G string. So we're extending that G string work. So we've got the 4 fingers. Again, great practice for making sure the elbow's in the right place. In the double bass part, they've got some interesting string crossings practice that they need to do. So we've not put instruments on hold while we kind of work on something else. And the nice thing is these pieces actually then work together. So we've got ensemble pieces if you're working in kind of the string orchestra setting or a whole class setting.
Brilliant. So we're going to play this one as well. This has got the band backtrack, very atmospheric.
Yes.
So there's a 2 bars introduction here. The thing I love about that, Paul, is it's actually hard to say who's got the tune, really.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So now we move on to a piece which we wrote specifically to introduce slurs. So can you tell me a bit about this, Paul?
Yeah, well, we had a problem, didn't we? Because we didn't want anybody to do any string crossings, and the double bass can only play 3 consecutive notes before it has to do a string crossing, which is why we used F sharps, E's and D's. What was interesting, we actually both teach slurs the same way. So how do we teach slurs, Mike?
Well, so you can see we're basically written the way that we teach them in the piece. So
Yes.
so we're starting with just these simple minims, trying to get the whole bow going in a smooth bow. You then do these sort of stop bows using the rests, and then so you're sort of measuring out your half bows. And the lyrics here, you can see the lyrics absolutely reinforce the bowing, and the instructions on how to play the piece, which is very useful, we think. And then what we then do is basically just get rid of the stops, so we go together. But there is a little sort of potentially controversial thing here, isn't there, Paul? When you look at these lyrics here and then you look at the slurs, can you comment on that?
Yeah, well, it's probably in variation 3. We have a little problem in, do you use vocal slurring or not vocal slurring? There's no examples that we could find of books that use lyrics to the same extent that we use lyrics, and what do you do when you have slurs? So we did quite a lot of experiments with our own pupils in teaching them slurs. If we used 2 separate sounds, whether that's 2 separate words or 2 separate syllables, actually the coordination of doing the slurring was nice and easy, where if you try to do the slur using 1 sound, 1 word over 2 notes, it actually just really confused them. So we know that we've not gone for technically correct vocal slurring. We've actually used the slurring and the lyrics to help the pupils from the coordination point of view, which is more important.
Absolutely. And you notice I didn't speak about variation 3, and that's because actually you can see it's significantly trickier. You do have an extra note comes in, though the good thing is even in a double bass, that's not actually a slur over a string. The string change is not on a slur. But what I tend to do when I'm teaching, the next 2 songs after this one are also backing up those slurs, helping the student get better at them. And I tend to come back to variation 3 after doing those. So we're not going to play this piece just now. We're going to move along, and we come to a tune called Come and Play With Us, which is a great kind of rock song, isn't it, this one, Paul? Now, there's a lot of points. So obviously, you've got the dotted crotchet and quaver rhythm, but can you tell us something about how the lyrics help with that rhythm?
Yes, we worked very hard, and if you look closely at the lyrics, every time there's a quaver after a dotted crotchet, you have the word and. So from a counting point of view, we're actually subconsciously actually putting that and into the music, because that's actually where the pupils actually particularly kind of make the mistakes. We've also, from a lyrical point of view, we've talked about clapping and singing and pointing and playing, you know, the different ways that we kind of kind of go about reinforcing kind of learning pieces of music, and we've made that rhythm very, very repetitive.
And one of the things you notice is that the lyrics of Spot and Dotty we talk about, and these are the two characters that we have, our cat and dog characters in the book, beautifully drawn by Sarah Lee Wills for our book. And one of the reasons, part of the lyrics we do is, it's like Spot and Dotty are learning the instrument along with you. So yes, we're trying to have this idea of all of us are in it together. So we're going to play this one, and we've got 2 bars of introduction. So a real contrasting piece next. So the idea behind this one, you can see here, Paul talked about compound time earlier, and this one is in compound time. It's not the first one that we do in compound time.
It's not the 4th.
That's right. But we wanted to show it because we feel that the slurring here really nicely shows this idea of 2 beats in a bar when you're in 6/8. And you've also got a lot of D major scale practice. But a great part of it is as well the way the lyrics about the ducks here, that you've got this idea that your bow is so smooth, like the duck gliding, rather like a swan, the sassons, and then you've got the movement of your fingers like it's feet underneath. And this is partly inspired by a student of mine who had helped us with the beginner's book and loved Paul's song Pavang for a Duck on there, because ducks are her favourite creatures. Very disappointed we had no duck in book 1 rather, and so then I managed to get the lyrics here to introduce the duck. However, we're not going to play this one. We'll, again, because of time, we'll move on and we'll have a look at a tune called Dark Forest, which is very appropriate for Halloween, is it not, Paul?
It is. The backing track's quite scary.
It is.
And so again, pardon me, in introducing the F natural, we just wanted to spend time just thinking about the E and the F and getting that absolutely beautifully placed, first of all. So again, there's lots of rest in here just to really think about setting up the finger and think and having time to think. Okay, are you ready to be scared, Mark?
Yeah, definitely am. So we've got 2 bars introduction here. This is a band backing track. Well, if you haven't all run away after that one, we come to a tune called Are You Sure It's Sharp? Now, I'm thinking here, isn't it, Paul, that so many students are not really sure whether it's sharp or not.
Yes.
And partly that's because sometimes students, do think of A2, etc., rather than C natural, C sharp. So that's one of the reasons we encourage that. And this tune's all about moving between. It wasn't the first one, was it, that we wrote with this? It's the second.
No, this is the second one. And before they actually get to this stage, they've had lots of practice with low twos.
With low twos, that's right. So you see here that it's quite interesting with the lyrics, I think. So if you've got a violin or a viola, if you look at the third line here, we've got, when it's sharp, I space my 2. When it's not, 1, 2 is with you. So you've got a very violin and viola related lyric there. But if you look at the cello part, the same bit, you've got, when it's sharp, I use my 3. When it's not, then 2 is for me. So we've tried to really be specific for the instrument that we're writing for there. And it's got a sort of, I like to think it's almost got a slightly Beatlesy sort of John Lennon feel to it, this one. So we're going to play this one. Yeah. So there's just, I just see one other thing is we've, at this point in the book, we stopped writing however many bars in production. We actually put the rest in at the beginning. So this time it's just the 1 bar. There'll still be 2 bars of clicks. So now we move on to, at the moment, our latest book, which is book 2, our 3rd book.
Yes.
And Paul, can you just run over what happens here?
Sure. So again, we've used this thing where we introduced new techniques using patterns that have already been learned, and the new techniques introduced using quaver, semi-quaver patterns, dotted quavers. We've done quite a lot of work on syncopations and introducing syncopations and different types of syncopations. And we've also introduced string crossings, slur string crossings, broken slurs, 9/8 time and 12/8 time. And then we've introduced the high 3-finger pattern, and then taking everything back with a low 1-finger pattern as well. We've introduced minor scales, and we've done natural minor, harmonic minor, melodic minor in that order. We'll talk about that when we get to it. And then again, at the end, we bring everything all together.
Yeah, in longer sort of grade 2-level pieces.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the first piece in the book, and I don't know, are we running very late this time, Paul?
We're possibly slightly late.
Slightly late, right. So we're coming to running very late. Obviously here we're introducing quaver, semi-quaver, rhythmic patterns, still within the D major scale, as you can see. Mostly we don't change finger in the semiquavers, but you can see there is an exception in that. Let's just run up in bar 4.
Yes.
And you see here we've even got multi-rests now. Now in this book, like in the last one, we actually start introducing actual dynamics, and you see here we've got them underneath the lyrics because we feel that's in a better place for instrumentalists. And we have more Italian terms start to creep into this book as well, including things like, you know, DS and DC and fine and things like that. Okay, so shall we play this one?
Yes.
So this is running very late. I think that's a tune everyone can relate to. We've all been running late at some point.
Yes.
Now, the next one we're just going to talk about, because this is a duet, and we have lots of duets throughout the Stringtastic series. This first one we've shown you. They don't have backing tracks, of course, because they are a duet.
Yes.
And Paul, these are equal level duets, aren't they? We're not doing a teacher's published.
No, all the way through, we took a conscious decision to make sure that all the duets are played by pupils and they can swap parts. And the nice thing is, These duets will work with a violin and double bass, or a double bass and viola. Any combination of the books that we have, these duets will work with.
You know, or literally all the instruments together as a little
Yes.
string ensemble.
Yes.
This one, of course, you can see here is using the dotted quaver, semiquaver rhythm. You've also got lots of articulations. For instance, you could play to the first note there, bar 10, and then swap parts. There's absolutely no reason why
Yes.
not. So that's one of the duets. Now, going on from there, we're going to skip all the way to the new finger pattern.
Yes, so again, in introducing a new finger pattern, we've gone for the simplest rhythms and the simplest notes that we can, because the focus is that new note, that new hand position, and to really embed in kind of that's fully understood, and that's what we've done with Mind the Gap. So should we play Mind the Gap?
So we're going to, it will have the repeat, and it's quite unusual from a harmonic point of view. And again, there the lyrics actually explain the technique as well. So moving on, we have a tune called Flatmates. Now, Flatmates is basically the equivalent of Mind the Gap, but just with the flats. So I don't think we need to say more about it than, again, the lyrics help. I think we should just play it straight away.
Okay.
So here it comes now. Paul, I'm thinking as well, to keep the talking down to a minimum and the playing to a maximum,
Yes.
I think we'll also play this next song, Feeling Flat, which shows the whole B-flat major scale. You see it on the E string, the violin, obviously down an octave, etc., on other instruments. And we'll just play it, but you can see how the lyrics actually match the notes, and the B-flat is where the B-flats are. We think that's rather good. So we're just going to play straight. This one's got an upbeat as well.
So Mark, we're now kind of at the minor section, and we are starting to run a little bit out of time. We'd like to just to kind of give us a brief overview of how we introduce minors and why we introduce them in this order.
Yeah, so we're going to show you these rather than play them. So the first one we do is naturally I'm a minor, which naturally is a natural minor. And everything is a natural minor, and it's including the piano part. There's not one note that isn't. And this shows that relationship with the relative major. So we thought that was best. It's got a sort of a variation. It's a verse and chorus, but really variations. It allows lots of bowing styles. This is just a little bit of it that you can see on the screen now. But we're going to just then look at the next song, which is called Rhapsody in D minor, very much in that kind of Oscar reading kind of style, folk, yeah?
Yes.
Dankler. And this one's a harmonic minor, isn't it?
Yes.
Why harmonic minor next?
So we've introduced the harmonic minor because the only difference is the sharp and 7. Everything else is the same. So it's only one note that's being changed. And the very first line, is as free as people want to play it. And it's just to give people that time to think about that augmented second and have lots of practice. And the nice thing with the accel is there to encourage people as they get more confident in exploring that interval, just to see how fast they can kind of push it and then bring it back right at the end.
And then finally after that we go to the melodic minor with top of the melodic 2, and obviously there we're changing the 6th degree as well, but then on the way down you're just back to the natural minor again, so you really show those connections.
Yes, and we also wanted to write a minor piece that sounded happy.
Exactly, which this one definitely does. So that's the minor section, and then we thought we'd just give you a taste of one of the longer pieces. So this is the very last piece in book 2, and we called it We're Stringtastic. Now, were we talking about you and myself? Oh.
No, we were talking about all the fabulous players out there that have kind of got to this stage of the book, and it's a celebration of all the instruments kind of getting to the end of this piece, and there's lots of things in there from syncopated slurring across strings, and it's actually a really fun, catchy little tune.
So we definitely want to play this
We
one.
definitely want to play this
again, we've got a little upbeat there at the beginning too. Here we go.
Fantastic, Mark. So we've actually come to the end. Before we go to hand back to Claire for any questions, we've learned a huge amount, haven't we, Mark, through kind of working through and writing this series. But we'd like to actually really thank our pupils for their actually brutally honest feedback in writing the tunes and things, and for being the guinea pigs and playing through the music. And also for helping us work out 180 titles.
Yes.
Because actually sometimes think of the title that is hard with writing the tune. We'd like to thank Faber for the faith in us in putting the series together. And we're really happy for anybody to get in touch with us. Feel free to get in touch with us through our website, which is stringtastic.co.uk, or through our Facebook page, which is, if you just do a search for Stringtastic, you'll find us there. So Claire, I'm going to stop sharing the screen now and over to you for questions.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Mark and Paul. That's been so interesting to hear a bit more about the pieces and kind of how people can use them in teaching. So thanks very much. So yeah, we've got about 10 minutes for questions. So please do sort of drop your questions in the Q&A section. Anything you'd like to ask, go right ahead. One other thing I was just going to say is we've got a discount code if you'd like to buy the books through the Faber Music website. So they're available widely from various music retailers. But if you'd like to buy them from the Faber Music website, there's a discount code, which I will pop in the chat. And I will also email out afterwards. So while we wait for people to drop any questions they've got in the chat, I will ask you guys a question. So we've heard some of the piano parts in those backing track recordings. Do you want to talk a little bit more? Actually, I've got it with me as well, the teacher's accompaniment book. Do you want to talk a bit more about sort of the difficulty level of the piano and accompaniments, what those are like?
Oh, shall I handle this one?
Yes.
Yes. So the piano tracks that you heard were played by me, well, kind of, because they're MIDI, and Paul likes to remind me that he could actually change anything. It's not necessarily me. But one of the things that we were very aware of is that not all string teachers are confident pianists. So we wanted to try and make the piano parts as simple as we could do while still being really effective. One of the things I think is quite difficult is when you're trying to actually, I often teach from the piano. I know, Paul, you don't do that so much, but I do, and you don't want all your attention taken up by a piano part. So that was one of the things we tried to make them as accessible as possible, even to the degree that I've got one or two little groups that I have where I've got a student pianist, even a young student pianist come in, and they're able to actually learn some of these piano parts. And I think then the other thing is that when you're writing a piano part for the double bass as well as the violin, it has its own challenges. We like to use kind of extended harmony, added ninths, things like that. Sounds great if you've got your violin playing it at the top. You could double bass playing that same ninth, you know, just right beside the root of the chord, obviously doesn't sound so good. So it's finding the ways of making the piano part work for all the instruments is quite challenging.
So we reckon that the piano parts are about grade 3.
Yeah.
With quite a lot of them a lot easier, and also we've kind of made sure that there's never more than 3 notes in a chord, and if there's movement in one hand, then the other hand is as static as possible.
Great, thanks so much. So we've had one question here from, well, not a question, a comment from Jennifer, saying, no question, but I'm just lurking here as a woodwind instructor, interested in beginner learning pedagogy, and hearing about your process has been fascinating and enlightening. So thank you, Jennifer. And I was wondering if actually that could lead us on to talk about something, you know, part of the pedagogy in this book is that it doesn't actually include any pieces that have been already written. So they're all new pieces that have been specifically written to perfectly match kind of the beginner learning process. Did you want to talk about that and, you know, why you made that decision?
Sure. The nice thing about writing your own pieces is you can make the pieces fit the pedagogy that you want, rather than going and finding pieces and then trying to make them fit somewhere. But also, there's so many, as we said at the start, so many phenomenal resources out there. Having another book with Twinkle Twinkle or Frere Jacques, you know, is that actually a good use of the space? You know, we all probably write and use notation software these days to kind of put bits and pieces together. We now have IMSLP, where we can download an awful lot of other music as well. So we kind of thought, actually, it's better to have a book of complete new stuff, and that then allows teachers to kind of also put in things that they like to use as well.
I think also one of the things that, it's not answering your question, it's just coming up with a different thing. The look of the book, the fact that we touched on it, didn't we, Paul, when we were doing our webinar there, the idea that a lot of the teaching technique, for want of a better word, is actually in the lyrics. Yes. in our book, because we like this idea of a clean page and letting the teacher teach the way that they want to teach. Encouraging sort of individual learning, and that was a very big thing for us in this, and we tried to make it so as flexible as possible and allow for that to happen.
Great, yeah, thanks. Keep those questions coming in if anyone's got any other burning questions to ask about the series. The other question that I might ask is, what sort of age range have you used the books with in your own teaching, and do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think we've done everything from about 5 to adult, and we've tried very hard with the cover design. Pupils walking through the corridor with that book, you could do that as a primary 1 pupil or as a secondary school pupil. It doesn't kind of scream out to you that it's a beginner book or anything. It's kind of age appropriate to kind of most age groups. It's interesting that a lot of the lyrics have been inspired by teenage kind of learners, and they kind of really like those lyrics and things. And I think because it doesn't have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and those nursery rhymes, it kind of makes them feel that they're not learning, childhood kind of songs. So it has been used successfully with children across, huge age ranges.
Yeah, I mean, also you just mentioned nursery rhymes in the photo, because it made me smile a little bit, because you're right, we haven't used sort of standard ones, but what we have done, we didn't show any in the book. We actually have written kind of new versions of or new settings of nursery rhymes. So we got one which we think is funny because it's called Eggy Soldiers,
yes,
which is actually Humpty Dumpty, and then we've got there's a sort of magpie duology, isn't it? There's a magpies one, which is 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, and then we have Mr. Magpie, which is what you say to a single magpie to ward off the bad luck. So we did introduce things like that as well, but in a kind of original way.
Yeah, and then there's a new version of Happy Birthday.
New version of Happy Birthday, a new version of Early One Morning. It's also, as in a new tune to it. Yeah, so those were really fun to do.
So I see another couple of questions. So Simon, if you just put into Google Stringtastic Book 1, whatever instrument you want, it's on sale on Amazon, it's on eBay, it's kind of all over the place. And
I'm just popping the link in the chat for you, so
okay,
that's my next thing to do.
Okay, and then all the backing tracks are all online on the Faber website, and are all downloadable free.
And the backing tracks are quite interesting. You'd have heard that they are the backing tracks. They don't have the solo line in there. Why was that, Paul?
Well, there's so many different variations that we could do with the backing tracks. Initially, we wanted to do slow backing tracks, fast backing tracks, band backing tracks, piano backing tracks with instruments on, backing tracks with instruments off, and all of a sudden you've got 1,000 backing tracks. We only actually get 2 weeks from the last edit to the publication. It takes about 2 weeks. So we've only got 2 weeks to actually finish all the backing tracks and export them and mix them and master them and everything. So to go into a recording studio and to kind of record the violin tracks, it's a huge expense, but there's actually not physically the time. And
you've also got, who plays the double bass tracks, who plays the cello tracks, it's a lot of complication. So we felt it was simpler just to leave it as the backing track.
Great, thanks so much. So yeah, I've popped a few links in the chat for everyone. There's a list to find the books on the Faber Music website. They're also available from various retailers, and there's a discount code in there. I've also put a link to the audio, which you can find on our website, and a link to the Stringtastic website too. As Malcolm mentioned, they're also on Facebook, so you can follow them there. So we're exactly at 1 hour. So I think unless anyone's got any other sort of burning questions, we'll bring the webinar to a close. Thanks so much everyone for joining, and hope you have fun sort of playing along at home, and hopefully we'll see you again soon at another webinar. So thanks very much. Thanks Malcolm, Paul.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your time.